Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon. I'm here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And let's talk about Star Wars, because somebody has to.
Yeah.
Somebody has to care. This made me smile. There's a deep fake video out there showing Harrison Ford and Billy D. Williams in Solo.
Yeah, it's actually kind of neat.
It's actually very, very cool how they did this. This video was done by Shamook, and they spliced Harrison Ford into scenes in Solo, a Star Wars story, and it's almost seamless.
It is.
Now, he's got Alden Ehrenreich's voice, but, you know, I want to talk about this, and we're going to talk about Jon Favreau again, talking about old school Star Wars fandom and how George Lucas did things. And this, I gotta wonder, because this seems like they're really pushing for going back to the older Star Wars fandom.
Well, the rumor is they're going to do this with Luke.
Yeah, that's what I want to talk about. Now, this was done by an individual. This was not Disney. And it's only got like 35,000 views on it. But I'm going to put a link to it in the description. It's actually very good. I have to wonder if this isn't kind of what they're thinking with Luke Skywalker thing. And Mark Hamill, yeah, he's already given consent. And I have to wonder, too, if they won't do a special edition someday of Solo. And just do this.
I don't know.
That would actually be pretty cool. But, you know, the thing is that Disney, I think part of the thought process with the sequel trilogy was they had to create newer, younger characters because, you know, actors are getting older and they can't reprise their roles. But now they've got this new technology out where they basically can keep actors at a certain age forever, or, you know, use actors that have passed on, like Carrie Fisher. We've already seen her. Kind of badly.
It wasn't very good. But they did really good with Tarkin, I thought.
Tarkin looked pretty good. I was surprised. Now, it does take, you know, having an actual actor, and then you basically are putting a very expensive filter on them.
Right. They have to look similar, have similar structures, you know, to make it easier.
But they've been practicing with this ever since Tron Legacy. They started with Jeff Bridges. Now, you could get away with him looking really fake in Tron Legacy because he was a computer character.
So it made sense.
But in the Marvel movies especially, they're always doing flashback scenes. And I have to wonder, they did it in Pirates of the Caribbean too, with young Johnny Depp, if the long-term game plan wasn't like, well, you know what, we can keep these characters 35 forever, and we can just go find a body double and paste their face on and get a voice actor that sounds like them. And, you know, it does make me wonder if this isn't what they're thinking. Right,
because the rumor is that they're going to do something with this with Luke.
And they could do it. If an individual can pull this off with Harrison Ford, and if you didn't know better and you saw this, you'd be like, oh my God, that's Harrison Ford.
When you see the acting, though, you can tell the acting is not Harrison Ford. I mean, it's similar, but it seems like he's off somewhat.
Yeah.
But it isn't bad. I mean, it's pretty cool.
Again, this is a person doing it versus like an entire effects team.
Well, to be fair, though, I mean, if you go to the Shop Disney thing I sent you earlier, there was a picture of a Figment shoulder plush. I didn't put a story out on it. It's a Figment shoulder sitter, and you can tell they have a picture of some guy in a shirt, and they just like superimposed the picture onto his shoulder, and it looks really, really dumb. So I would hope they do better than that.
Yeah, I think they would. So look, this all seems to be building to a head. Some stuff that Jon Favreau has been saying, the fact that Mark Hamill has already given his consent for Luke Skywalker to be recreated digitally. And, you know, Disney knows that the sequel trilogy era is a complete dud. Could we be looking at Disney just being like, the future is the past? The future of Star Wars is the past.
Well, they're doing it with that Lego holiday special. Yeah. They're going back to the past so Rey can be the master, because they're going to double down on that bullshit.
So let's go back to the original trilogy. Hey, Carrie Fisher's dead. It doesn't matter. Harrison Ford's damn near 80. It doesn't matter. We can have Han, Luke, and Leia live on forever on Disney Plus.
As long as they have permission from the actors to do so, which they do for Mark Hamill, apparently.
Well, I thought Carrie Fisher, the way her family was talking, they were promised that there wouldn't be CGI, and they CGI'd her in anyway in The Rise of Skywalker.
Well, they used footage they had, but then I think so. Well, they had the CGI, or they had her daughter playing her.
They had the younger version
for the training, so they did it anyway. I guess it's okay as long as her daughter was involved. I don't know.
I don't know, but Mark Hamill's already preemptively given the go-ahead, and I have to wonder, you know, if they threw enough money at Harrison Ford, could they be like, yeah, let's do a Solo series on Disney Plus, but let's just get a body double and do this instead. You know, because look, I mean, the character is so closely associated with Harrison Ford, it's jarring to see somebody else play Han Solo.
Yeah, I mean, even though I have to admit, when you see them side by side, they do look very similar. But yeah, it is. It really is.
More so than you'd think, because they really didn't change a whole lot, and it's still like, that's Harrison Ford. You can tell it's Harrison Ford. You know, and people were talking about, you know, Alden Ehrenreich's forehead and all this other stuff.
I think it's more off-putting with Lando. I don't think he fits as well.
Yeah, that was kind of weird. Oh, I think they just kind of, because they only had the one scene with Lando, but, you know, Disney probably could do it. And then you have to wonder, like, what's the, I guess, the morality of this? Because at this point, you know, you've got a studio like Disney that can keep, you know, actors alive at a certain age forever. At what point do you not even need to hire new actors?
Well, you'd have to hire someone to put the stuff on. You mean you're going to have to hire somebody to act that out and then superimpose a face onto.
Yeah.
But I mean, you don't have to.
For now.
Yeah. For now. Yes.
I mean, if it gets to the point, because, you know, still the CGI, the bodies look kind of fakey, but eventually it's going to get to a point where it's like, we've got digital actors and we're making movies completely digitally. We don't have to deal with the headaches of having these actors out there on social media, because our digital actors don't have opinions unless we make them have opinions, because our social media managers have opinions. But, you know, we don't have to pay them exorbitant, you know, $20 million a picture. You know, we basically create a digital actor and we just use them forever in movies.
Yeah.
I mean, that could be the future of movies. And that's kind of scary when you think about it. It is kind of
scary.
And at that point, every movie basically becomes a cartoon. But they kind of are now anyway. They have so many effects in them that even movies that don't have a lot of special effects. I was watching a video and they had, like, you know, like shots of houses and stuff, and they would CGI like forests in the background.
Yeah, they do it now all the time.
All the time.
You don't even know it's seamless.
Yeah, so it's getting kind of crazy. But talking about going back to the original trilogy and the original thought process, we're going to follow up on what we talked about the other day about Jon Favreau coming out and saying that Disney needed to reach out to the core Star Wars fans.
Right, instead of alienating them. So
now they have another interview with Jon Favreau, and he's talking about, you know, how hard it is to be George Lucas. And this was interesting. This was on Deadline. You kicked this over to me this morning.
I did.
I saw some people, you know, talking about it here, but you know, they're talking about how hard it is to do what George Lucas did seamlessly.
Because it's his vision, it's his story, it's his voice, and how do you keep that continuity going, but, you know, you're not him. Is that what you mean? Yeah,
and that's the thing. It's like when somebody has a natural style, even as like an artist, when somebody has a natural style, for them it's like nothing. They just do it. But if somebody else came in and tried to mimic their style, it would be hard, because you actually have to think differently or think the way they think or whatever. And that's kind of the way George Lucas was with Star Wars. That's why Star Wars, the original trilogy, felt so much like, even the prequels felt more like George Lucas, because there's a certain way that he tells stories. And, you know, all of Hollywood, they've got all these Hollywood people together and they can't make it click. But then you've got, you know, Jon Favreau, who's coming in and saying, let's try to do it George's way. Let's try. Right.
He said he went back to what he knew Lucas went to, like samurai films, westerns, and then he said he realized what was really mind blowing is there's so much in trying to create authenticity. It to make it feel akin to what George had done. Then you have to realize that George was doing it without a roadmap. Basically, yeah, he was, because that, like you said, it was his own way. He made it up as he went. We all know this.
Yeah, and he did. He pulled from westerns. He pulled from samurai movies. He pulled from war movies. And this is what, you know, one of the things that kind of frustrates me today. We should have more movies out there that pull from the 70s and 80s, but don't feel like they're aping the 70s or 80s, or not reboots of the 70s or 80s or even 90s. Poor reboots. Instead of rebooting stuff, look at what guys like Steven Spielberg did. Look at what guys like George Lucas did, and they took all those things that they watched as kids and teenagers, young adults, and turned it into something new.
Well, yeah, that was Stranger Things. I mean, it's obviously not in the 80s, yes and no, but I'm saying it's because, you know, they grew up then. Yeah. So they made a show that took place in that feels more authentic than other shows that you get reboots and stuff. It was something new, but it felt more authentic to the 80s because, you know, they drew from the actual 80s movies, and you can see their influences in there. I'm just, you know.
Yeah,
no, it's not the same thing, but you know.
Well, yeah, versus just let's just take something that
change it all, make it about us.
Yeah, and a lot of these franchises were created by people who grew up in the 50s, 60s, you know, and so their experiences kind of formed.
The boomers.
The boomers created most of the pop culture that y'all are aping today, copying today.
So you're copying the boomers. There you go.
Copying the boomers. So here's something else he said in this Deadline interview. To have a way to create freshness while still being respectful of what came before, I think is one of the challenges of storytellers in this moment, because we're inundated with so much content. Now everything's at the touch of a finger, so everybody has a tremendous cultural context. You know, everybody's checking your work. He said to explain how he grappled with the pressure of doing Star Wars, the inevitability of comparison to Lucas's Star Wars, he offered an analogy. We're DJs playing Beatles songs. He's the Beatles, he said. And the trick is, how do you recombine that? Mm-hmm. And that's...
Yeah, I like how you put it in perspective that's respectful.
Yeah.
It's not odd. Okay, I'm going to bring shit up again. Everybody keeps saying that. You have Noelle Stevenson going on how it's her daughter, and everybody like, oh, Noelle Stevenson invented She-Ra. No, she didn't. She is the DJ playing a mix of She-Ra. Not
even. I would say an unrecognizable...
Right.
Like, where they take and they do like a...
They kept the title of the song and changed everything.
Dubstep yeah. She-Ra theme. Or actually, that'd be kind of cool. But, yeah, this is an uncool dubstep theme of She-Ra. And, yeah, you're going to piss the purists off. And I understand you have to grow your audience, but what Lucasfilm has been doing is actually shrinking the audience, mm-hmm. alienating core fans. Jon Favreau now, he seems like he's saying the right things, and I have to wonder, is, all the rumors about this strife at Lucasfilm, is it true, and is he throwing his hat into the ring by being like, here's what I would do if I were in charge, Bob Chapek?
I don't know.
Here's what I would do. Here's how I'm going to fix Star Wars. We're going to go back to George. Maybe not bring George in specifically. A lot of people are like, oh, we'll just bring George to run the company. I don't know if he wants to, but try to think like him.
Right.
And see where he's coming from.
Try to be as authentic as possible. Try to be, authentic to the property so that you're authentic to the fans. You're authentic to the legacy moving forward. And there's a clear difference between the sequel trilogy and The Mandalorian.
Yeah, because I think one comes from a place of respect and the other comes from a place of arrogance. Mm-hmm. The sequel trilogy, they thought they could out Lucas, and they were going to piss all over his work. And it's like, it doesn't matter.
Arrogance and agenda. I mean, let's be honest. I'm going to, like, she always says I'm a woman. I am a women. I'm going to say it again. As a woman, I get tired of this whole, women didn't exist in Star Wars till now, and we need a strong female lead because women need to identify with characters. I'm like, I can identify with characters that aren't female, by the way, and men can identify with characters that are female. But this whole idea that it has to be a female, and that every female has to be respected, even if they just show up like Holdo for no reason or Rose Tico for no reason, and they're just there simply to slap down the male characters. If you can't hold your own on your own footing at the same level, and you're just trying to lower one to elevate another, that's not a strong character. That's just a bully or a character that's brought in to just, slap down somebody else. That's not going to be a beloved thing here, people. Half your audience is male. More than probably half your audience is male. Mm. So it's like when you're insulting men to elevate, those stupid adventure things they have on YouTube where they retcon Leia, so she's slapping Luke and all. I mean, come on. I'm an old school Star Wars fan, and I thought what you did to Luke was shit, and I'm a woman.
I think what it is, and anytime you have somebody that comes in that's trying to push an agenda, they're trying to make a market that's not there. We saw this in comics too, where they're like, well, if we just, swap out all these old straight male characters and bring in a whole bunch of new, younger, diverse characters, that means we're going to attract all these younger, hipper readers. And it turns out that a lot of times it's not the case. Star Wars was a cultural touchstone, and you can't replicate that. To younger kids, for the most part, it's just another big budget movie franchise. They moved on. They've gone to Marvel. Since then we've had the MCU.
I think MCU is more popular with kids than the Star Wars.
Yeah, we've had Lord of the Rings. I think Lord of the Rings is more popular with a lot of people.
I don't think people, but not kids. I think the MCU, you have a lot more popularity with that with kids than Star Wars.
But I mean, there have been so many other franchises that have come since Star Wars that to see it in the shape it's in when you get like Solo bombing at the box office, Rise of Skywalker massively underperforming. This should not have happened. Mm-mm. It should not have. I mean, Captain Marvel should not. I think Captain Marvel might have actually made more money than Rise of Skywalker. That should not have happened. But it just shows where Star Wars kind of is, and you cannot afford to lose that core audience, and you're not replacing them. And that's what happened with comics too. They chased everybody off because they always thought there were going to be more customers. It's we talked about the one company I worked for. where, you know, as a marketing manager for this one company, we had a lot of clients all over the place, all different economic, I guess, categories.
They've been with them for years.
Decades. And we had a new C-level person come in who was like, why are we chasing basically the mom and pop money? Why don't we just focus on the Lexus clientele and drop the smaller people? Well, that worked great for about a year until the economy took a hit. And then the whales, they weren't picking those clients up as much, and the mom and pop shops, they let them go. Because they
found other places to go, so they're gonna stay with who took them.
Yeah, and they basically weren't wanted. Yeah, and they were loyal for years. They were paying customers, even though they weren't paying as much. They were still consistent customers.
And there was a lot of them.
There was a lot of them, and that's what happened with Star Wars too. It was like, oh well, you know, to make an omelet, we have to break a few eggs, but it's like you got rid of the customers that have supported these franchises for years. It's not just Star Wars, it's Star Trek and Doctor Who and comic books and all these things. You chased people off. And then you're sitting here scratching your heads like, you know, well, what happened? Why didn't the movie perform? Why isn't the merchandise selling? Because you told people you didn't want them anymore.
Yeah, boomers, incels.
You didn't want them anymore, and that you thought this other audience was going to come and make it up and then some, and they're not interested.
No.
Because it doesn't mean anything to them.
That's just it. And then, you know, and you might have a new rabid fan base that's for that one thing, but like you saw it again, like you got a bunch of new fans, quote unquote, rabid fans for The Last Jedi, but when they went to Rise of Skywalker and tried to, you know, balance it out again, all I did was just piss everybody off.
And then they didn't get their ship.
Right. And then, yeah, and the same thing with She-Ra. Yeah, you got this small group of really, really, really rabid fans, and that's great, but it's all going back to classics because that's what people knew for 30-some years, and, you know, the people behind that were accepting of everyone. Yeah,
Hasbro gets it. Hasbro's like, man, we took a beating on sequel trilogy toys. They barely brought anything out for The Rise of Skywalker, and now they're just focusing on vintage and Baby Yoda.
But Baby Yoda's not selling.
It's not selling. They were too late with the Baby Yoda stuff. It'll sitting
come
on the
back
shelf.
around. Just give it to October.
Yeah, I just really hope they don't screw this season up. So I think the future of Star Wars is in the past. One way or another, I think Disney's going to start looking at this, especially with Bob Chapek, because Chapek is a numbers guy.
Yeah,
Chapek, and he's going to be like, what sells? Oh, vintage, original trilogy,
We're
classic.
already seeing it with the merch. We're already seeing it with the merch for Disney parks.
Yeah, it's all original trilogy.
Yep.
You're not seeing Porg shit like you were. Mm-mm. Nobody cares. They know that ship has sailed. Now, whether or not they retcon the sequel trilogy out of existence, I don't think they will. But could I see them doing Luke Skywalker and Han Solo shows with? Yeah,
probably.
Absolutely. Keep them alive forever. All right, so we're going to wrap this one up.
Yep.
Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, and we'll talk later.
Bye.
Hey guys, thanks for watching Clownfish TV. Please consider supporting the channel. Go to clownfishsupport.com. That's clownfishsupport.com. And if you want to join our community, go to clownfishtalk.com. That's clownfishtalk.com. Please subscribe, ring the bell for notifications. We will talk to you next time.